Every single one of us was created to live more than an average life. Yes, every single one of us. Deep within each and every one of us, we yearn and we long and we love to rise above limitations. We yearn, we believe, we wish to break barriers and to step into a life full of impact and significance. Yes, but why is it that many of us still remain and stuck in the ordinary? Many of us are still stuck in the state of ordinary. Why? There is this truth: the extraordinary is not reserved for some chosen few, for some few people. It is validated to anyone who is willing to embrace the mindsets, the faith, and the actions that lead to greatness. If you are embracing, or you have the ability to embrace the mindsets, if you have the ability to have the faith, if you also have the ability to take actions that lead to greatness, extraordinary is available for you. The Holy Book, the Bible, is filled with so many stories of ordinary men and women who became extraordinary through faith, resilience, and obedience to God. They had the will to embrace, they had the zeal to embrace faith, they had the will to take actions, they had the will to embrace a particular mindset that they are going to be extraordinary. In this video, I want to take you on a journey of transformation, where we break free, we break loose the mediocrity and step into the extraordinary level of life that God Himself destined us to be. So stay tuned with me, watch this video to the end as I take you through 5 steps, 5 ways, 5 methods, 5 practices that will let you move from being just an ordinary to an extraordinary person. Number 1, the power of your decision. Number 1, the power of a decision. One decision can change everything. One decision can change everything in your life. Imagine standing at a crossroad. One path leads to comfort and the other to greatness. What you decide in that moment will determine your future. Just one decision can change your entire life. For example, Moses moved from being fugitive to a deliverer. From being a fugitive to becoming a deliverer. Moses was an ordinary man, was just an ordinary man who was declared fugitive and who had run from Egypt after killing an Egyptian. And he spent years in the wilderness, hiding from his past. He was afraid of what he had done, so he spent most of his lifetime in the wilderness, hiding, trying to hide himself from his own past. But one encounter with God at the burning bush changed his life and everything about his life. In fact, he actually had a choice to stay whilst the bush was burning. He had a choice to stay in the wilderness or step into his divine calling. And that one decision that Moses took led to the deliverance of an entire nation that the Almighty Lord had promised that they will be delivered. The Lord had promised them that I have heard your cry and I'm sending you a deliverer. But Moses was still hiding in the wilderness. He had the chance, he had the opportunity, he had the option, he had the choice either to step forward, be encountered, go in front of or meet the fire, approach the fire at the burning, or approach the fire which was burning at the bush, the burning bush. To approach the burning bush, he had a choice to approach the burning bush. He had the choice to stay in the wilderness or continue to stay relaxed But he decided, he just made a choice. Why do I stay here? Why do I continue to stay in the wilderness? Whilst there is a bush burning, why don't I go take a decision to step out from my comfort zone and step forward? And that decision led Moses to deliver a whole nation, a God's nation on God's own heart, was delivered by a decision taken by Moses, not to stay in the wilderness, but to get out and watch the burning bush. My dear, my sister, my friend, extraordinary people are not born. Extraordinary people are not born. Extraordinary people are not born. But they are made through decisive decision, through decisive action. They are not born. Nobody is born. Nobody was born extraordinary. But it depends on the decisive decisions that they take, the decisive actions that they took, the decisive path, the decisive steps that they take. That makes them extraordinary. Extraordinary people choose faith over fear. They decide that no, I will choose faith over the fear. And they will choose purpose over excuses. So choose purpose over excuse. Have a purpose and choose that purpose, and don't limit yourself to excuses. Extraordinary people choose faith over fear. Instead of you going in for faith, you have faith and fear on your table. My dear, my sister, choose faith over fear. Choose purpose over excuses. William Jennings Bryan once quoted and said that destiny is not a matter of chance, but a matter of choice. Destiny is not a matter of chance, but a matter of choice. To move from being just an ordinary person to an extraordinary person. Point number 2, relentless effort. You have to push beyond rejection and failure. Push beyond rejection and failure. What if your greatest failure is just a setup for your greatest victory? Oh yes, you really hear that. What if that greatest failure is a setup, is a platform, is a stepping stone for your greatest victory? What if many people, including you and I, stop at the first sign of failure, at the glance of failure? The moment failure stares at them, they haven't even failed, but the moment failure stares at them, then they stop. But those who achieve greatness understand that setbacks are stepping stones. Setbacks are stepping stones. Those who understand failures, those who achieve greatness, people who go on in life and achieve greatness, have come to realization that every step back is a stepping stone. Apostle Peter was then an ordinary fisherman. He moved from failure to become the rock of the church. Apostle Peter, being an ordinary fisherman, full of zeal but prone to failure. Peter was full of zeal. He was willing. He was having the desire, but he was prone to failure. Apostle Peter then denied Jesus at the most crucial time for 3 times. But instead of him sitting and following failure, thinking about failure, I have failed. Do you know what he did? He repented. He rose up and became the leader of the early church. On the day of Pentecost, this same Peter who denied Jesus for 3 times, who failed to cover Jesus, this same Peter who denied Jesus for 3 times in crucial moments on the day of Pentecost, this same man, this same Peter, stood up before thousands. He led 3,000 people to salvation. He led people to salvation. 3,000 people to salvation. This same Peter. So let me tell you, extraordinary people, they don't quit when they fail. What they do is they learn, they grow, and they rise again. Henry Ford said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again. Henry Ford, he said, failure is simply the opportunity to begin again. But this time, more intelligently. More intelligently. So to become an extraordinary person, if you want to move from being just an ordinary person to become an extraordinary person, you have to have relentless effort. You have to ensure that you push through beyond rejection and beyond failure, because failure is simply the opportunity to begin again, and this time more intelligent. As you are beginning again, you do it with more sense, you do with more experience. You have now gained more knowledge about it. You have known that this was not the way, but now you become more intelligent. You open your eyes more. Point number 3, you have to embrace fear. Embrace fear and step into the unknown. Embrace fear and step into the unknown. Fear is not your enemy. Do you know what your enemy is? Or you do know who your enemy is? Your enemy is stagnation. The moment you become stagnant, the moment you are at the level that you are not doing anything, that is the greatest enemy. But it is not fear. Many a times, many people allow themselves to be paralyzed by fear, and this keeps them from taking some important risk. But the extraordinary recognizes that fear is just an indication, it's a sign that something great, oh my God, is on the other side. Fear is giving you a sign that this thing that you are afraid, there is something great, there is something much bigger, there is success at the other side. The moment you start to have fear, it's giving you an indication that there is success ahead. Esther was an orphan. In the Bible, Esther was an orphan, but he overcame fear and saved a nation. And she did that by overcoming fear. In fact, when her people were being threatened with destruction, she had no choice but to face a terrifying choice. He had no choice but to take a decision to risk her life by approaching the king without being summoned. So Esther had a choice, had the option. Either she would stay until she is being called by the king, or she is being summoned by the king, or stay silent and let her people perish. Or by approaching the king without being summoned. Because at that time, you have to be called by the king, you have to be summoned by the king before you can go to the king. And her nation were being threatened for destruction. So she had no option. All the options she had were these two: either to stay silent for her people to die, or she had to approach the king without being called upon, without being summoned. But in a moment of courage, she declared, "If I perish, I perish." She declared, "If I perish, I perish. If I perish, I perish." She declared, "If I perish, I perish. If I perish, I perish." Because of this bold decision that she took, she was able to save an entire nation, entire generation. Fear is a sign that God is calling you to something greater. Push past it. Push past it. Push past it, and you will find your destiny. Nelson Mandela said, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Courage is not the absence of fear, but triumph over it. So your ability to triumph over the fear is what we call courage. Do this and you are going to be extraordinary, instead of you being known to be just an ordinary person. Point number 4, you have to choose purpose over comfort. Choose purpose over comfort. You cannot be great and comfortable at the same time. No, you cannot be great and comfortable at the same time. Many people settle for the life of comfort extraordinary people, extraordinary individuals understand that purpose requires sacrifice. Purpose requires sacrifice. In fact, Apostle Paul had every good reason to live a comfortable life, but he chose suffering for a greater purpose. He was actually a respected Pharisee with status and power. But after encountering Jesus, he gave up everything to follow his divine calling, to follow Jesus. He endured imprisonment. He endured beatings. He endured the shipwrecks. Yet he never wavered. Do you know why? Because he understood that his purpose was greater than his personal comfort. So don't allow your personal comfort, your current comfort zone, overshadow the purpose, but rather let purpose be greater. See purpose to be more greater and higher than your comfort life. So in this life, if you want to be extraordinary, what you have to do, one thing that you have to do is you must be willing to leave behind what is easy for what is meaningful. Leave behind what is easy for what is meaningful. There are certain things they are easy, but leave them and do the things that are meaningful. William Shedd once said, "A ship is safe in harbor, but that's not what ships are built for." A ship is very safe when it is hooked and staying at the harbor. But are ships made to be hooked at the harbor? No, ships are to be sailed on the sea, are to be on the sea. So ships are safer in harbor, but that's not what they are built for. You are not built to be who you are now. So leave that comfort zone and take a risk. Forge ahead, and you are going to be an extraordinary person instead of your current ordinary person that you are known to be. Point 5. Trust in God's timing. You have to trust in God's timing. Trust in God's timing. Do you know that your waiting season is not a wasted time? It's time for preparation. Your waiting period is not a wasted time, but it's time for preparation. The journey from ordinary person to becoming an extraordinary person is often slow and very painful. But trust that every step has a purpose. Joseph in the Bible, from prison to palace, Joseph was betrayed by his brothers so many times. He was sold into slavery and wrongfully imprisoned. For years, it seemed like his dreams were shattered. But he remained faithful. He trusted God's timing. In God's perfect timing, Joseph went from prison to Prime Minister of Egypt, saving countless lives during famine. The fact is, God's process may sometimes or may not always make sense. God's process may not always make sense. But if you remain faithful and you believe in his timing, he will elevate you at the right time. Leo Tolstoy said, "The two most powerful warriors are patience and time." The two most powerful warriors are patience and time. When you step into the extraordinary, God has placed something great inside of you. The only question is, will you step out in faith, push past failure, and pursue your divine purpose? It's about time. It's about time to stop living in the shadows of the ordinary and embrace the greatness God has placed within you. Let me tell you this. Jimmy Johnson once said, "The only difference between ordinary and the extraordinary is that little extra." Stay blessed and follow these steps and practices to move from an ordinary person to becoming an extraordinary person that God has destined you to be. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video for me.